Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
Generational wealth is incredibly difficult to accrue. My mom likes to joke that we come from a long line of people who are bad at money. She always talks about wanting to buy a house so that she has something to leave her kids. I got really sick when I was a kid, and all our money went towards that. I had to leave college because I couldn't afford my next year's tuition, medical bills, and life. It's all so difficult. And then you think about wanting to leave something behind for your kids. Well, how can you leave something behind for your kids when every day you're trying to make sure that your kids have joy and happiness and health and fulfillment today? Every day I'm really concerned about if I'll be able to keep living and making art in this city for myself.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at the local Filipino community, Phil Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, Phil Radio, every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Do you have an idea for a community project in your neighborhood? You could be eligible for up to $50,000 in funding through the City of Seattle's Neighborhood Matching Fund. Grants are awarded to grassroots projects that build stronger communities, with an emphasis on projects led by impacting Black, Indigenous, and people of color BIPOC communities. To learn more about the Neighborhood Matching Fund or to see if your project meets the criteria, visit seattle.gov/neighborhoods/NMF.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Many people will fight you down when you see John.
All right. We are live. This is Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire. The big long pause there. Man, that music, I don't know what is going on with that music, but man, we got it. We're going to hit the ground running and we need that music. No blame. But Bob Marley just puts it all in perspective. He's quite the poet, by the way. And I got on the Bob Marley train late. My sister and my dad and mom, they were all big Bob Marley fans. And I was like, Rastaman vibration, yeah, and all that. And then the more and more I studied the music, then the better it got. So clearly, D Money says, hey, the music sounds great over there, which is good. We want the listeners to kind of get the energy because so I don't know. My speakers, maybe not. Who knows? Who cares? What we do know is we're alive And well, if you will, as I take a glance out the window, yes, it is that time of the Seattle. This is it. This is that couple weeks that you dread. And so, I mean, look, this is why it's why we live here. I mean, well, I mean, we live here for the, that summer and the spring, but now we're paying the price for that. And so it's really it is what it is, right? Here is my mental health and wellness to you all, and that is, it's dreary, it's dark, it's rainy. Be careful when you drive, right? Don't turn your lights on, all those kinds of things. But it's all right. It's part of the evolution of why we live here. It's part of the cycle why we live in the Northwest. We need the rain. Hopefully it'll stop because of the flooding, but it's part of what we need. And well, you know what? So looky here. So we had a big show today, still do. And I was going to separate the guests, right? But I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to throw a curveball. The winter meetings are going on. So I'm going to throw a curveball to both of our guests who know each other, if I get this correctly. And I always kind of have them one before the other or the other one before this, that, and whatnot. And so, you know what? It's interesting because they know the different sports. In my mind, I always have that one can't talk about the other. I know you're going, what is he talking about? I'm telling you what I'm talking about, because normally I have Scott Lego come on talking about, and I'll have him say his name again. I don't know what is wrong with me. Maybe when you're over 60, you just forget stuff. But and Peter Hattrip. But Scott usually comes on and talks about college football. Well, which is a no duh, because when that you think, right, when you coach at the UW and you are, CEO of a program to help high school athletes, and your son-in-law, I believe, is involved in college football, and you're around the game on so many different levels. Well, why wouldn't you make him your specialist for the show? Hello, that makes sense. And then on the other, flip the coin, if you will, you've got a legend, a soccer legend in the community. The Seattle Prep, and then obviously SPU. I always forget the Seattle Prep bit, but I did remember today. And he played basketball, but he went on to play not only SPU, but for the Sounders, and I think Portland, but he played indoor. Part of the United States men's national team. So, hey, you can't blame me for kind of separating the two. But then when you think about it, one went to Seattle Prep, one went to O'Day, so they're a couple local boys. So I'm just gonna ride with them. They're in the back seat. We're still gonna talk about the Mariners and everything else we had. They're just gonna be here for the 60 minutes or 58 minutes that we have. So can both of y'all come on? Yeah.
Hey, Maz, I understand why you got Seattle Prep and O'Day. You should separate us.
You know what? You both did this because of your professionalism and who you are and the integrity that you have. I tell one to come on 11:30, one to come on at 12. Well, I think I did. So what do they do? Because of who they are, right? Because sports is one thing, right? It molds us, but who people are, who they are, is just part of the extension. So they both come on. I gave the introduction. Let's roll. We're going to roll with it right now. I'll probably do more Q&A for the both of you. So who are they? If you don't know, Peter Hattrip to the right and Scott Lago to the left. Am I saying that right? I swear, Scott, I say it wrong every show.
It's Ligo. That's okay.
Scott Ligo. Yeah.
Trust me. I heard enough. I've heard enough renditions of it. Trust me.
Kind of you and me both. You and me both. The legend over there. I'm sure. Hat Trip. Tripping. I'm sure he's heard a few. So.
I've heard some butchering of it. What I think is a kind of simple name, but you never know.
So hey, fellas, how you doing? Let me just start off with the kind of roundhouse check-in. How we doing? How we doing?
Doing good. We're doing good. Just following this crazy college football.
Well, yeah, Scott gets to talk about the Huskies, and I get to talk about the Sounders. So he's doing better than I am right now, but that's okay. So you got to have something to stick with through the holidays, and right now the Huskies are providing with a lot of entertainment for the rest of us.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're gonna put the slate out there, and we're just gonna talk about all of it, because the other thing, interesting enough, Scott played soccer. You know what I'm saying? That's what's funny. I never, and Peter, you followed the UW. Y'all live what? Don't you live just in the back, just across the bridge there from Mount Lake? So your family's been season tickets, and I don't know if you have them now, but so you follow Husky football. So, all right, let's start with the before we get to your bread and butter, what did I have? I did want to talk about the Seahawks. So we talk a little bit about the Seahawks. The good thing, is Geno Smith was the FedEx Player of the Week nominated. He's one of 3 now. And also Bobby Wagner was Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And all 32 teams do that, nominate a player. And I can't think of a better player because of what they do off the field and on the field. So that's the good stuff. Tell me your thoughts on the Seahawks. And we're doing popcorn, so go. There's no order here.
Well, obviously kind of an up and down season so far, and, frustrating. Some weeks you think they're going to be okay, and the next week, and then they've got a tough end of the year. That's the hardest part for them. I mean, they still have to play San Francisco again. They got to play Pittsburgh. They got to play Philly. I mean, that's a tough sledding, to see if they can make it. And, after watching San Francisco on Sunday do what they did to Philly, that's concerning. But Pete somehow gets them riled up and ready to go. I mean, I was kind of shocked when they went down to Dallas and put up as many points as they did. Had they been struggling prior to that. So, kudos to them and to the program. I mean, they're getting it done, but they've got a tough sledding to see if they can make these playoffs. That's for sure. I think.
Yeah, I think they kicked away a couple they probably should have won. You lose twice to the Rams. That's not helping. Even the Dallas game, where big underdog, but right in there with a chance. And last year they were finding a way to sneak those wins in, and it's like Scott says, we're behind the 8 ball a little bit, going. They're getting that San Francisco, Philly back to back here when you're at 500. But Pete finds a way to get an upset or 2 every year. So if they can get one of those, then I think they're right back in it. It's going to be a tough one, but it's doable.
Leave it up to the soccer guy to do the pun there, Scott. Did you catch that? They kind of kicked it when they missed the last second field goal against the Rams. Leave it to the soccer guy. Oh, you got to remember his dry wit and humor. I think you both bring up good points. Anyways, let me know if you guys want a free plane ticket to go to San Fran on Sunday, because I'm going yeesh. That probably was. It looked good on paper, see them beat San Fran about 6 months ago, but nonetheless, I think you're both right. And actually, Peter, to your point, the Rams are now tied with the Seahawks and actually ahead of them for the tiebreaker, because they're still in the playoff contention as well. Now the Rams are in, they're knocking on that doorstep and they're the tiebreaker in terms of that. So you couldn't be more spot on. Scott's point, they are, they've got the 2. They've got San Fran, I think, and then Philly. And then you got Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Arizona. But you're right. I think they'll win on Sunday. But maybe just because I don't want to have a bad trip, but I think they do because of the 10 days they've had. And because they're flipping the script. That's what happened when the Niners and the Seahawks played the first time. They're obviously more talented. the Seahawks are. But I think, the 49ers, but I think they might have found something. But only if Jordan Brooks and Zach Charbonnet are healthy. But they've had 10 days and no Abe Lucas is okay. I think they found something in running outside there. I think Shane Waldron finally figured out get the ball to the playmakers quickly. And that means run different routes. They're running too many of the long routes. And that's why, Gino was under duress the whole time. So, they ramp up back up tomorrow. So that's when they've been off for quite a while. I don't know if you guys know, but the NFL, Tuesday is the official day off for the NFL. Yeah, Scott, I figured you knew that as well. I probably should do the Mariners. They didn't make the trade. Interesting. What's you all's take on the Mariners?
Well, for me personally, I'm not a baseball guy. I would be first and foremost to say that up front. From afar, you guys may know more about it than I do, but it sounds like they're getting rid of to add. But I always kind of use the premise from the Hernandez years when he was so good and they didn't surround him and make it go for it and try to go win a World Series. And that's my concern with Rodriguez. They've got a great young talent and you got to surround him with some bats and some pitching and make it happen. And I would just hate to see a talented young kid like that get squandered. Or 2 to 3 years from now, they make the mega deal and sell them. No, again, I'm not a baseball guy, so don't, nobody put that out that I said that Rodriguez is going to get traded. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I hope they do the kid right because I think he's a phenomenal talent. But again, I'm not a baseball guy by any chance of that. So those are my two cents.
Well, part of me wants to withhold judgment to see what they actually do. Are they getting rid of people to dump salary? Are they getting rid of people to free up salary? But in baseball, when it's not a salary cap league, it's a luxury tax league. But you know what? The big teams don't get rid of contracts to get contracts. They add on to it. And I think, if they're having to get rid of contracts to think they're going to go out and get somebody, are they shuffling the chairs on the Titanic, or are they really loading up?
Well, both good points. So they acquired right-handed pitcher. So they pick up 2 pitchers, Jackson Koa and also Cole Phillips from Atlanta. And so they send Marco Gonzalez, outfielder Jared Kalnick, and also infielder Evan White, and then cash consideration. So they actually end up giving the Braves money, but it ends up, I think the Braves were like, hey, these prospects who really weren't all that good. So to your point about shuffling the the deck in the Titanic there, Koa, he's 27, appeared in 23 games, and with KC 2-0. And then Phillips, he was second overall pick. This is what you guys are saying. He was 57th in the 2020 MLB first year draft for the Braves, and they really haven't done much in terms of, you're not getting that, the team's ultimate, player. In terms of their prospect, that hot prospect at the team, that's not what these players are. So supposedly this is a salary cap dump, despite them giving them money.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. They stuck with Kelnick when he really went through some tough times. And then when it finally looked like he might have something figured out, now you're going to get rid of him. And it seems like a strange move. Suarez move was strange. He's not only did they strike out too much, but he provided some valuable hits. And it sounds like he was a real leader on the team. So if you're getting rid of a leader, you better have somebody of real high quality coming in.
Yeah, they're going to have to get that a star, a draw, to your point, because I think they're already, given the moves they've made already, They
not just a draw, but somebody that galvanizes that clubhouse, because they seem to keep getting rid of guys that really are high quality guys in the clubhouse. And I don't know, the guys that don't play the sports maybe don't understand how important that is. If you're getting rid of somebody that really is one of those glue guys, you better be getting something special for them.
Yeah.
Not somebody that's kind of about the same or a little bit better, because a good clubhouse, a good locker room is worth a few extra wins a year.
Sky, you know this, obviously, having had to manage a locker room and build a locker room. But here's the question to Peter's point, and why I think it's a draw. But do you want to bring in somebody too big? Because really, Julio is that guy, right? So sometimes, I mean, how do you? So Peter, are they 2 years away from that? Is he 2 years away from being that guy? Either one you can answer, or because you always have to be careful, because is he ready? Because you bring in somebody too big, right? Then it can get all kind of so weird. So where do you guys think Julio Rodriguez is in terms of this being his team and it being his locker room?
I think it's hard to say. Your best player isn't always your biggest leader. And I think everybody wants them to be, but that's not always the case. And sometimes we want to try and manufacture a leader. He might well be the face of the club for years, because he has an outgoing personality. He's good with the press. He's, a young, fun-loving kid, very much in the Ken Griffey Jr. mode. But Junior had Buhner and Edgar and other guys, so he didn't have to be the leader all the time. He could just go be Junior, and maybe that's what Rodriguez needs. He needs some veteran leaders alongside of him, so he can just go do his thing, not worry about being the public face and the locker room face and the on-field face. That's a lot to ask for a kid. It's a lot to ask for a veteran.
Couldn't agree with you more, Peter. I mean, I thoroughly, agree with what your position. Your best player isn't always the best leader in the locker room or whatever he's doing. And I think that to your point about Griffey with having a Buhner or something like that, that's what I think that they need. And that Suarez seemed like that was kind of like he was doing those types of things probably in the locker room for him. And so that's a little concerning when they get rid of him. And also always concerns me when a guy like Suarez, he gets to go to a program that just played for the World Series. So, I mean, his fortunes got upped a lot. Obviously, so they saw the value in him. It's sort of like, Time Man of the Year this year for sports is Messi, into Peter's sport, into what he knows. And, how much maybe that helped DeAndre Yeldon, the O'Day kid who plays there. And, when Messi went out of the game, he gave him the captain thing. DeAndre has always had a career that's going up. And I think having a guy like Messi near him, it helps him become a better player, blah, blah, blah. And I think my point about Rodriguez, I think that's what he needs. He needs somebody, I don't think necessarily the superstar, Maz, but I think somebody who's really well respected, who's going to do some things, who's going to pull him to the side. Because sometimes these guys, they need that. They need that, pull the knucklehead over here for a second and talk to him. Let's get this straight and do the things. And to Peter's point, that's the biggest thing that they have. And again, I know nothing about the sport, but I do know one thing. They do strike out a lot. And it's frustrating, especially when you get in the playoffs. I mean, we all know one thing, that Major League Baseball, and like any sport, analytics drives it. And if you can't hit a curveball, that's what you're going to see in the postseason. You're going to see curveball after curveball after curveball because you can't hit that thing, or that you like the high heat or whatever the deal is. So it's having the maturity to understand what they're going to do to you, how you play that, and making yourself have a great locker room. And my concern is a guy like Cal Raleigh, who's came out right after the season and said what he said. And then you lose a Suarez, and you lose this, and you lose that. And to what Peter's point is, those things in a locker room are invaluable. Time and time again, you hear it from a lot of people. If the locker room can take care of itself, the coach doesn't have to do those things. It should be a player-led program, not a coach-led program. And if it is, then you kind of got problems, I think.
I'll play devil's advocate just because I was there. I thought I was there when Carl Rowley said, "Hey, you know," when I was like, "Dude, we're sitting there," and I'm going, "Is this really the appropriate action?" You know, I mean, I get the message, but you could just go 100 feet down there. You know, who is this helping? So, and other people thought, no, that's what the message that had to be said. J.P. Crawford, maybe they're saying this is J.P. Crawford is that guy. Because the Mariners, as much as I mean, I'm sitting on the fence here. The move I liked was they kept J.P. Crawford and he became that quiet person in the locker room. Because they were looking to get, to move him. So maybe to both of your points about maybe that's who they're saying he's that leader, but he's not, long on the tooth and gray, but I think JP could be that, but we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I agreed. Just bringing some different points there. All right, well, we got plenty to go. We'll run on a break in about 5 minutes. Where do we start with? Let's go with the Sounders because we're going to do, and we'll run over a little bit. And both of you watch No Sounders. Did they overachieve or underachieve?
I think they ended up about where they were all season long. I mean, the last game kind of was a microcosm of the season. They played pretty well, I thought. They created chances early. Old saying, goals change games. If Jordan scores on his breakaway early on and you're ahead 1-0, I think they go on and win comfortably. But they don't. And that was goals were hard to come by this year. And they defended well all year long, but they give away one. And in spite of some pressure, they didn't create a ton of clear chances after that. And I think that's something they lacked. I think they need to go out and find somebody. There's talk of this kid out of Argentina. And we'll see what happens with that. But they need somebody that can create chances for both themselves and others. And they don't have much of that out there.
It was just they scored 41 goals for the season, which was third worst. And Scott, you understand the game as well. Anything to add to that?
No, I mean, just, I think, for Brian Schmetzer's standpoint, I mean, obviously, offense, gets you the victories. And so it's, frustrating when you have the people that you have around Jordan and all the kids at the front that they can do. They just don't manufacture things. And it's frustrating. I mean, and in the game, it's sort of like baseball. I mean, you got to hit the ball when you're in those tight situations. You got to score goals when you got a chance. And again, I just think that, maybe, I mean, again, I'm deferring this to Peter more than to me, but it seems like they haven't really made a huge change in their program. Maybe they need to bring in some fresh blood. I mean, I'm not sure what that is, and I don't know what that means. But it seems like it's kind of a little status quo to me right now, that it's just been kind of the same thing, and they're kind of not getting the results that they had when they've had all the magic the last couple of years. And everybody has always been trying to improve, every team, any sport, whatever they do. So, but that's just kind of what I see from afar. But again, I'm not as in depth as you two are when it comes to the game. But I enjoy the game, but I just don't know it as well as you two do, especially local.
You play the game. Let's ask one of the most prolific scorers in Washington State history. Guess who we got in the room? So, but Peter, the thing is can you get kind of that brain lock there? And we kind of, maybe that's what Scott's talking about, because after a while, if should have, prolific scores score. I ain't seeing it.
Well, I mean, I don't think Rui Diaz he was a sniper, and between injuries and form, it's been a while since he was that player. Not just this season, but last part of the season before, he didn't have that kind of year. They lack someone that changes the numbers, and by that I mean either that goes past their man, either with or without the ball. Jordan can run past people. He can't really dribble people. Chu every now and then does it, but not consistently. And part of they used to get away with it partially by Lodero's work rate and mobility, that he got around the field so much that they ended up a man up in positions because he roamed the field and had that effect. But that kind of went away. They need somebody that can do something special. Now, it's easier said than done. That's why those guys cost so much money. That's why Messi gets every accolade, because not only does he score goals, but he creates goals for other people. And he changes. You can't let him play 1-against-1. I mean, you've heard it for 20 years now. 1-on-1, you're dead. So that means somebody else has got to go help. And now he finds that guy that you left. So, it's easy to say, well, we need someone that can do that. But finding that person without breaking the bank, and even sometimes even if you want to break the bank, you can't get them, is difficult.
Hold that clip, D-Money. Let's stop on that point and hold on to that clip you're going to show. We're going to show it on the other half. Brilliant point, Peter, because I think the guy that they're bringing in, just in terms of acceleration, beating a couple players and dragging them, we're going to see that. And who am I talking about? Pedro de la Vega is who they're rumored to have. So I looked on YouTube and kind of did some research on them. So we're going to go on break, and then we're going to come back, take a look at that, and then wrap that up. And then we got to talk about them dogs. So, all right, Seattle Sports Weekly, man, we got a couple legends on the show. That is Scott Lego is on, and Peter Hattrip, of course, is on as well. So, D-Money, take us to the break, and we'll be right back.
Rainier Avenue Radio.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
When I think about generational wealth, I think about history. I think about the history of exploitation, of what led us to today. Some people live a certain socioeconomic way, and the majority does not get to live in that same way. Perhaps they don't want to live that way. I don't know.
Generational wealth has some really strong positives and some really strong negatives. At its best, it's ways that communities can grow, find security for themselves. It's a way to make sure that your children and their children and each generation thereafter has opportunities to find joy and growth and make a difference in the world.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is an important message about coronavirus. With coronavirus still spreading, those who are most likely to get seriously ill must take extra precautions. You are at a higher risk for getting seriously ill if you are over 65 or if you have any serious underlying medical conditions, like heart disease, chronic lung disease, like asthma, diabetes, or if you're undergoing cancer treatment. If you're at a higher risk for getting seriously ill, it's essential you take extra care to protect yourself. Stay home, avoid close contact with others, wash your hands frequently with soap and water for 20 seconds, disinfect frequently touched objects like doorknobs and light switches. The choices you make are critical, and their impact is significant.
No, you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio.
All right, we are back for after a little halftime readjustments there. So we have Scott Lego. He is on the show today, and we're going to talk Huskies, and also Peter Hattrip. Legend, they've both been on, and we do this every so often. So guys, come on back if you're there. We go. So we talked a little bit around the sports, baseball a little bit, and now we're talking Sounders. And Peter, brilliant point just in terms of what the Sounders needed. They only scored 41 goals last year, which was like third least in MLS, and obviously their defense was fantastic. And to your point in terms about the key in soccer, there are those players that can drag other players on the offensive end, and you always have to know where they are, like in any sports. Scott, as it was number 51 if you're on offense and whatnot. There's those type of players that demand attention, whether they have the ball or not. You've got to know where they are, and then when they do get the ball, that's when their magic is done. And so the Sounders needed. I thought, Scott, you also brought up a good point that I think aligns with what Peter's saying. They needed a change of pace, right? They needed somebody else, and so. D-Money, I'm going to play this video. Let's see if this works. Watch this guy here. This is the guy. He misses. De La Vega misses, but that's not the point. It's to what Peter's saying. He misses here. Watch the replay, how he drags. Give and go, and he drags the players. Boom. This, I think, is what Peter's alluding to, because this is De La Vega right here. So he's already beaten here. I didn't go all the way here, but to Peter, he's already beaten, right? He came from this spot here, and that's what Boenga did for LAFC when he scored against the Sounders with the 1-0 goal. He came from out here. But watch y'all how he goes here, gets the give and go, right? And Peter, I'm going to do you want to add anything else here? Because why would I talk while you're in the room?
Well, you look at, if you flip this over to the other side of the field right now, because you can't make them out that well, it almost looks like you're watching Messi cut in from the right, about to play the ball into Suarez and get it back. I mean, it's that does what he's got people chasing. We got people trying to figure out, should I go to the ball? Should I stay with my guy? And now they're all in trouble.
All right, so we're going to watch it, and then all right, so I'm going to let you, I think you said it again, but if you want to add anything else, we're going to watch the miss. We're going to see him split the defenders.
Ay, De La Vega, querido. Una devolución de Loki estupenda de taco. Señores.
Oh, there it is. I think to your point there. Is that what you're speaking of right there?
Because if this guy's still goal side, they're all fine. They got more back than they have forward. But now the minute he goes past his man, the picture changes for everybody. And everyone has to start reacting. And having someone run towards you with the ball free is every defender's worst nightmare.
All right.
Clarísima, fíjense cómo trasladó Pepo. Espectacular donde pasa la...
There he is. Now, having said all that, one of the things that the Sounders lacked was finishing, but there is there's plenty of videos. Like I said, you can see D Money was going to roll the other one of him scoring. I don't think that's wanted to kind of showcase what you said. So one breaking news while y'all here. I mean, the Sounders re-signed Stephen Fry for 2-year contract. I think this guy, if they sign him, and so he plays for Luna, Pedro de la Vega, looking for his designated player, 22-year-old Argentinian youth international. So he had 17 goals and 13 assists, 126 appearances, and so he played 2019 FIFA U20 World Cup for Argentina, as well as the 2020 Summer Olympics. So,
yeah, I mean, he's coming off an injury. Last 2022, I believe, knee injury, which is probably why he's available. That the Sounders can afford so he's not going to Atletico Madrid or someplace else. But I think you're going to have to find somebody in that kind of situation. You're not going to find the perfect finished product in a world where they're paying people $350,000 a week at some places. So for what sounds great, a few $1 million. I'll go back and trade in my career salaries for a year or two of that, but in the world game, that's not that much. So you get a chance to, and maybe you get him for 2 or 3 years if he's this kind of player, and he comes and sparks things, and if he's that good, then you sell him for your $50 million, and you go find the next couple. Because that's kind of, people complain that we're a selling league, but outside of the Premier League and Bayern Munich and PSG and Atletico, Barcelona, and Real Madrid, everyone's a selling league and a selling club. It's just the way the world works.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm you know what? I'm going to make the stop right there in terms of money. That's how I'm going to get into the college football. And I don't know if 4 years ago we could have said, we would have said Real Madrid, 350,000 a week in Premier League, and college football fits right in. Scott, take me away to the NIL. I mean, I love how you're sending stuff, but what in the world? Well, let me start with this. Let me tee you up. The transfer portal, December the 4th, starts December 4th to January 2nd. I threw up a bunch of lemons in you. I hope you can make lemonade out of that. So,
well, to start off with, just this morning got some updated numbers. I mean, there's 1,900 FBS, over 1,000 FCS, over 1,200 D2, and even the D3 kids are joining into the portal, which I'm a little confused where they're going to go, but which comes to over 4,000 kids in the portal as of day one doing this thing. And, then you add the NIL realm to that whole deal. And, they're saying that the number for a quarterback now is from 1.5 to as high as past $2 million to get a kid into your school. And, don't get me started on the tampering issue, because it's amazed to me that the portal started yesterday, but everybody knew last week that the Johnson kid from Texas A&M was already going to North Carolina. So how does that work? I mean, don't you have to start the time that the time is supposed to start? But here nor there, we are where we are in this world. It is what it is, and it befuddles me. But I, also saw this morning, I think I passed it on to you, Maz, is that Charlie Baker is trying to maybe look at trying to do a trust deal with the top programs. I obviously we continue to see a lot of the finer details of that whole thing. I'm all for the players getting the money and all that kind of stuff. I do think that we need to somehow rein it in and how we give the money out and how it's allocate, because I think at the end of the day, some of this money could be pretty, generational and help out a lot of people, especially when we do the ads that you guys do on Rainier Avenue Radio about generational wealth. Could be, help some of these kids out if it's held right. But I also think that, just giving kids on a college campus X dollars kind of, opens up the door for a lot of bad things to happen too. So, we'll see what happens. But college football is in a crazy moment. I mean, just starting with the playoff selection alone,
right?
I've always been, joking about it. I said, don't be nice to me, Peter, when I say this. I went to O'Day, and so our math skills weren't always the best. But when you have 5 power conferences and you only have 4 spots, you already have a math problem. And so, there's a lot of challenges that it worked out great. And of course, the year that we're going to employ the Pac-12. Do all the things we're going to do. College football is the best year maybe that I've ever seen. All the years that they've been doing this was to have the 12-team playoff was this year. I mean, talk about could have been a great playoff game. I mean, playoff situation. So it is what it is. But we also know that we have to deal with the system that we're dealing with.
Well, okay, we can get to the football, but here is kind of my whole. You brought it up. I mean, here is the issue with that, right? So we're saying, hey, let's take all this money and let's put it in a trust fund and trust these people. These are the same people that are making, that have been screwing up the system and did the 4 instead of the 12. They could have done this a long time ago, right? Yeah. So that's in passing. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea, but I'd rather let them figure it out themselves. I just don't want to go back to these people, and it will, hold on to it. But let's we could digress, and that's the thing with either one of you. I could do a 2-hour show just with each one of you. Peter, going back to the UW, and then Scott, I want to follow up with a couple questions just about from a administration perspective, football players. What do you do now for the next 2 weeks? But UW beats Oregon. I know you watched the game. Did you have a little house party over there at Montlake tailgate? Did you?
No, I was traveling, but I got to see it.
Okay. So what takes UW, your UW fans, to take us from what, how you're feeling right now? Thoughts?
The landscape has changed so much from when I grew up that as excited I am, I think it's great because I'm excited for any Seattle team that does well. I don't have the same feel as I probably did about the 91 team or the 84 team, or for me, even Warren Moon and Michael Jackson's team that won the 78 Rose Bowl team, because I knew who all the players were, and I'd known them all for a couple of years, and you kind of grew up with those guys were in your program. It's a different animal now, and I don't blame the players. I think the players should be getting whatever they can out of it. To your point, I don't think the NCAA. I think other than the FBI, they probably employ more attorneys than anybody else in the country, and I have no idea what they're doing. And I think it's been a mess since I was in school. NIL, great. I don't know who's running it. I don't know if anybody's running it. I don't know but having said that, this is also, we're talking about University of Washington. So I remember sitting next to Hugh McElhaney, who famously said when he went to the 49ers, I just took a pay cut. So it's not new. No one's going to tell me these kids that were going to Alabama or wherever else it was. I've heard Jerry West tell the story. One of the jobs he had in college was to turn on the automatic lights at the tennis courts and the automatic sprinklers. In other words, they went on again. Good. Where's my paycheck? And that was back in the 50s. So is the money bigger? Absolutely. But they're generating more money. So I don't have a problem with people getting it. The fact that the NCAA even pretends to be in charge is laughable to me, because they, like Scott's talking about, the portal opened up yesterday, and everybody knew who was coming and going half the time. So it is kind of the Wild West, and I feel for coaches that are working to coach kids, but I don't feel for coaches that were going to pick up and leave for the next job that's going to get them more money the next year either, and go, sorry, kid. Remember I talked about commitment, all this and that, but wait a minute, I can make a lot of money. So I don't think anybody can fault the kids for taking the money when they can. I wonder what it's like in a locker room when you have a quarterback making $1.5 million and you have a lineman that somebody gave him a truck to drive. That's the pro world's different, but it's an interesting dilemma, and that's another thing the coach has got to work with. How you explain to this kid? I expect just as much as you as I do from him, but sorry, you're still looking for pizza money, and he's taking people out to Metropolitan Grill.
Scott, how much? Quite a bit there, right? But if you could just, how much? Let's go the money wise, right? From a bowl game, and how does that go? And then when if you can just then hit the part about transfer portal quarterbacks, because and bring it home to UW if you don't mind. I mean, like, are they gonna dip? Should they?
Well, the word on the street is that they're going to go and get the kid out of Mississippi State.
Right.
So they've already dipped, whatever, how you want to put it. It's amazing, a kid like Cam Ward 2 weeks ago was kind of rumored to be out there, and all of a sudden he went completely down the ranks faster than anything because all these other kids came out quickly, and that changed up a lot. It's a market. Let's be perfectly blunt. It's, like the stock market. It's you're either traded up or you're traded down, and you're going to figure out what you're going to do. For what I do on the side with student athlete advocates, I mean, I want to know those 4,000 kids. I want to know how many land, how many go down, how many go, which way they're going to end up doing this whole thing. That's another question that they need to really, answer. And nobody wants to, openly discuss, as I like to say. As far as the money goes, when, Maz, I mean, it's so out of control. I know this is going to be a hate moment when I say this, but, my stepson he's at Oregon.
Yeah.
The crazy part, he was texting me 2 minutes before they got announced, and it was going to be SMU. 2 seconds later, it got flipped and it was Liberty. Well, what people don't realize, for SMU, that's a huge financial hit not to get that J1 bowl game and to be part of the FBS. I mean, that money is big. And Peter, I don't know if you knew, but SMU wanted to get into the ACC. They took a 9-year, no revenue media rights deal. So they needed to make up the 9, to make up those 9 years. So they did is they talked to their boosters, and at 8,000 students at the University of SMU, they just turned on the oil spigots and they raised $200 million in a week and got their coffers back right. And so when you lose out an opportunity to be in a bowl game like that, it's a significant hit. And, it's obviously it helps out all the rest of the things. And that's why people like, people wondering why Oregon State and Washington State are fighting so hard for this deal for the Pac-2 or 12 or however you want to call it. It comes to that $450 million in the basketball money. That's what it comes down to. And that's what they're trying to fight for. They're trying to fight for every dollar they got. And, so for people that don't understand the math, so Coach Smith leaves Oregon State. He was getting paid $4.7. He goes to Michigan State. He gets $7.4 million. So he's made his raise. They hired Trent Bray. The AD from, Oregon State said, hey, we brought Coach Smith a contract extension. And they end up paying Bray only $1 million, a little over $1 million. So is that conversation with Coach Smith, what they were talking about? So we're going to have this conversation. It's your contract's really not as much as, and the same thing. I just saw the Boise coach. He only got $1 million. I mean, it comes down to the bottom line. It comes down to dollars. And they need to figure out the media rights deal for any of these programs. The Mountain West and the Pac-12 working together, how's that going to work? And you're talking $10 million they're talking about only them guys getting, and the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get $80 to $100 million. Well, put that out for 10 years. You got $800 to $1 billion versus $100 million. You can't compete. And it's the haves and the have-nots. And, you know how I feel about it, Mavs. I think they just need to pull the Band-Aid. They all know what they want to do. They want to make 2 conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, put the top 50 teams or whatever that number ends up being, and do it. And let's get this done. And then make a subdivision of a SCS, FBS leagues, and let those guys play for the old, national championships. I mean, I don't know what the model would look like. All I'm saying is let's just get this thing done, because, what to Peter's point, the bag that was underneath the table is on top of the table, and there's no regulation, and they're just throwing money out left and right, and it's crazy what they're doing out there. And I just think they need to get it under control sooner than later. So I think they're going to implode themselves in this deal, to be honest with you, if they don't.
Okay. And I think the non-revenue sports are, at some point, I honestly think football should get loose from the rest of it. I don't. The Huskies going to play Big Ten soccer and volleyball and cross country, it makes no sense. They should just make a football league. Let's stop pretending it has to do with, Pac-10. Well, all of a sudden, Pac-10 eventually became the Pac-12, and I don't know that Colorado is very Pacific, or Utah. I'm old enough to remember the Pac-8. What the heck happened? All schools on the Pacific Coast. There's no regional connections anymore. It's a business, and it's okay. Just admit it, like you're saying.
Yep.
Admit it and just go do it, and say, all right, football's its own entity, and it kind of always has been. Mike Lude famously told the athletes at UW, "You're all just taking money from my football program. Don't screw it up. You better not get in any trouble. You better not cause problems." So, and it's still that way. These programs need to be funded by the football, but like I said, there's no reason for gymnastics or soccer or baseball or anything else to be traveling, to Syracuse for league games. It's nonsensical, but the football teams can afford to. Okay, we charter our plane, big deal. We're making, the program's making millions, so let's do this. The rest of them probably need to go their own way, and somebody is going to have to come to that conclusion at some point, or they're going to have to get rid of all these sports because they're not going to be able to afford them.
I think they get it. They just don't want to deal with it. I think, they didn't, Title 19, they didn't deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just barely now is that even a thing just across the board. So, yeah, I agree just in terms of, it's the TV and the voting on the East Coast that necessitated all of this, So if the people voting the Heisman, right, we're going to see Michael Penix is going to win the 4, but if they've been just as much voters on not only the Heisman, but in terms of the rankings on, you divide the country in half. If they would have been even, you wouldn't have any of this. You really wouldn't, but they had to be were just as good. So, all right. So what are we saying about UW and Texas?
Go
Scott?
Huskies. That's we get back to good things.
Scott?
Well, we got
a couple minutes, so we got to, what I mean?
Sark Bowl / Alamo Bowl redo over again, so that'll be interesting to see it happens. Texas just lost their linebacker coach, Choate. He's going to be the new head coach at Nevada. So
wasn't he at UW? I'm sorry. Was he UW?
Choate was at UW with Coach Peters. With Coach Pete. So, I don't know how that's going to affect her. He'll just stay on until the bowl game, that kind of thing. Obviously they put up a lot of points against Oklahoma State. So hopefully the defense can, rise to the occasion and make that happen. I think it's going to be a great game. I think that, both playoff games are going to be good. And, without having to get in the argument of Florida State not making it, all that kind of stuff. It is what it is. And I think that, Washington's, obviously their passing attack is prolific. And if they can be indoors and do what it's been doing, I think they're going to be just fine in that game. So I think they got a chance to play for the national championship. So, which is, what you just want to get a chance to be at the dance,
All right, fellas, gentlemen, we got to go. And so let me
One last thing, though.
please.
When you showed that highlight of that Argentinian player, it
Right.
kind of brought bad memories for me with Peter, because he was from the famous St. Joe's team with Mike Henderson and Mark Henderson and Chuck McChesney and Johnny Fleck and all these guys that were really good. And they were so good. And they used to wear the Argentinian uniforms. They had the blue and white things, and they would kick our butts really bad. So it was nightmares playing those guys.
I don't want to hear it. I saw something with Troy Miles not too long ago and on TV, and they were showing the O'Day gym, and I think I still got PTSD from my visits there for basketball. It was not
okay,
pretty.
there you go. We'll leave it
not
at that. But I got to tell you,
All right,
Scott.
thanks, guys. I got to run.
Yeah, he's left many people in his wake, and so fair enough. And we know about O'Day. All right, so there they are, Scott Lago, and also Peter Hatrip, and we want to say thank you for having them. Look, coming up, Clean Greens is coming up next, and lastly, we have a holiday vendor fair here at Columbia City Theater next Saturday, the 16th from 11 to 5, and also food giveaway from 11 to 1 and a toy drive. So get out there, support the community. Thanks for our guests. Thank you, D Money. This is Seattle Sports. I'm Mazvita Maraire. Thank you all.